So before I start off this new video, I want to briefly mention about this new series I'm creating. So I'm starting this new video series called The History of the Hotels on the Strip. On the Las Vegas Strip, excuse me. So I'm going to cover every Vegas hotel on the Strip that's appeared so far. And for today's episode, I'm going to start with the Sands, which was a very famous hotel, especially in the 60s. So work on the Sands first started in early 1962, and it was built to a design by Wayne McAllister. I probably pronounced that wrong. Originally, the hotel was going to be named Holiday Inn after the film of the same name starring Bing Crosby, but after the owner of the place at the time found sand in his socks, changed the name to Sands. The tagline for the hotel would be "A Place in the Sun," named after a recently released film starring Montgomery Clifton and Elizabeth Taylor, and suits the Las Vegas area. The hotel was opened on December 15, 1952 as a casino with 200 rooms and was established less than 3 months after the opening of another prominent landmark, the Sahara Hotel and Casino. The opening was widely publicized, and the hotel was visited by some 12,000 people within a few hours. Special guests on that night were Arlene Dahl, Esther Williams, and Terry Moore. Every guest was given a bag with some silver dollars. And apparently the Sands end up losing $200,000 in the first 8 hours. Danny Thomas, Jimmy McCoss, and the Copa Girls, labeled the most beautiful girls in the world, performed in the Copa Room on opening night, and Ray Sinatra and his orchestra were the initial house band. Thomas was hired to perform for the first 2 weeks, but he strained his voice on the second night, and he developed like carcinus or something. I can't pronounce it. And was replaced by such performers as Jimmy Durante, Frankie Lane, Jane Powell, and the Ritz Brothers, and Ray Anthony. I'm going to kind of shorten that up. This is an interesting story. Now the Copa Room got the name Copa Room. Jack and Tedder, who formerly was in charge of the New York nightclub, the Copacabana, I can't pronounce it, became the hotel manager. He made many show business friends during his time at the nightclub and was able to use these connections to sign performers to the Sands Copa Room. He also was able to offer entertainers with additional incentive to perform at the Sands. Headlining stars received points or a percentage of ownership within the hotel and casino. He personally selected Copa girls that wore $12,000. It's worth the costumes on the hotel's opening night. This surpassed the salary of the Copa Room star at the time, Danny Thomas. In the early years, there's something about Friedman offered someone Carol a $5 stake in the Sands, but he declined the offers. Now this is where we get into the mobs from the period. So it was Lansky and Costello who brought Sands to Frank Sinatra's attention. He began staying at the hotel and gambling there during breaks from Hollywood, although some sources state he was not a hardcore gambler. But mobsters kept running the hotel were not too concerned because Sinatra was great for business. He made his debut performing at the hotel on October 5, 1953, after an invitation by the manager. Sinatra typically played at the Sands 3 times a year, sometimes on a 2-week stint, which brought in the big rollers a lot of oil money from Texas. The big rollers left Vegas when Sinatra did, and other performers were reluctant to perform after him, feeling intimidated. And Tanner replaced Friedman, the owner, as president of the Sands Hotel following his death from heart surgery on January 20th, 1958. Sinatra, who had been attempted to buy a share in the hotel soon after first visiting in 1953, but was denied by the Nevada Tax Commission, was now granted permission to buy a share in the hotel due to his phenomenal impact upon the business in Las Vegas. His share was described from somewhere to 29%. In 1955, limited interrogation came to heavily sick Las Vegas when the Sands allowed Nat King Cole to stay in the hotel and perform. Sinatra noticed he never saw Cole in the dining room, always eating his meal in solitude in his dressing room. When he asked George to find out why, he learned that African Americans weren't allowed in the dining room. And Sinatra got angry. He would see that all the waitresses and the waiters and waitresses got fired, and he invited to dine with them. Cole was even allowed to head into the casino, but another black performer, Harry Belafonte, took a more aggressive approach by walking into the casino on his own accord and sitting at a table. He was not challenged. He became the first black man to play on the strip. Sammy Davis Jr. was instrumental in beginning about a new change in policy. It was in 1958, Davis informed the manager that his father and uncle must be allowed to stay at the Sands while he performed there. He granted permission, but he was a little off about it. And then in 1961, an African-American couple entered the lobby, and Sinatra and Davis were watching. Sinatra told the guards that they were his guests and to let them into the hotel. He didn't phone down to Sands exclusive. Carl contained how ridiculous the situation was in the following day. And this is how the blacks started and the Sands employed African Americans. In the late 50s, John F. Kennedy, the senator at the time, was an occasional guest of Sinatra's at the Sands. Arguably, the hotel's biggest claim to fame was the 3-week period in 1960 during the filming of Ocean's 11, the original version, which obtained iconic status. During that time, the movie stars Sinatra, Martin, Davis, and Bishop, and Peter Lawford performed on stage together in the Copa Room. The performances were called The Summit at the Sands, and this is considered the birth of the Rat Pack. So now we're into the 1960s. So when Howard Hughes purchased the hotel in the mid-1960s for $14.6 million, the architect Martin Stern Jr. added a 500-room circular tower, which opened in 1967, and the hotel became a Vegas landmark. Hughes grew particularly annoyed every time Rat Pack were in his hotel due to hatred of Frank Sinatra. And there was a love story. Hughes plotted to get rid of Sinatra from Sands for good and asked Robert Mayhew to draw up a plan shortly after the new hotel opened in '67. The hotel imposed restrictions on what Sinatra could gamble in the casino to just $3,000 a night. Sinatra had no limits originally. The manager was supposed to tell Sinatra, but he never did it. Fuming. Sinatra began what the Los Angeles Times describes as a weekend-long tirade against the hotel's management, employees, and security forces. And then Sinatra supposedly drove a golf cart through the window of the coffee shop. Sinatra never performed at the Sands again after this, when Hughes owned it and he began performing at Caesar's Palace. A number of the staff wasn't actually happy to see Sinatra leave. After Sinatra left, the mobsters pulled out of the Sands and gradually left Vegas in the 70s. In the 70s, it became associated with the likes of Wayne Newton and Liberace. At the time, some 30% of the performers at the Sands were Italian Americans. Frank Sinatra became the drummer for the house in 1964, starting a 12-year tenure. In '68, Hughes stated that he had a plan to expand the hotel to a 4,000-room resort, but his plans did not materialize. His company sold the Sands to the Pratt Corporation, but significantly bought it back when they were unable to make a profit. MGM Grand bought the hotel, MGM Inc. bought the hotel along with the neighboring Desert Inn in 1988 for a total of $167 million, and then the property became known as MGM Sands. And then they sold it to MGM Sands for $110 million. A new company formed by the owners of the Interface Group, including Sheldon Anderson, Richard Kissoff, Ted Cutler, Iron Chefs, and Jordan Soprato. I can't pronounce that. The same year, it was licensed by a Nevada Gaming Commission, and Ellison became a casino magnate. In the early 1990s, Ellison built the Sands Expo, a million square foot, or 93 convention center. And then the 1990s, it was becoming well aware that the Sands was cannot compete with the new buildings that were, or new hotels that were being built and constructed. So then the decision was eventually made by its final owner, Mr. Elderson, to shut it down and build a brand new resort. The last dice in the casino was rolled by Bob Stupak just after 6 p.m. on June 30th, 1996. On November 26, 1966, it was imploded and demolished, much to the dismay of longtime employees and sentimentalists. Footage of the demolition also appeared in the closing credits of The Cooler, and also the climactic plane crash in 1997's Con Air ended with the aircraft crashing into the soon-to-be demolished Sands lobby. In 1999, on May 3rd, 1999, the Venetian opened, and then in 2014, the Palazzo, or 2013, opened, and that's it with the Sands. And I could go on, but there's no reason to.